a typical owner of a company is trying to get by without spending any money. We take the opposite approach. We go out there and we spend money to make money, and it works. It's that simple.
My guest now is none other than Mel Lisiten. Some background about a very distinguished guest. Mel founded Lisiten Associates. They are the #1 business brokerage in North America. They've been in business for over 3 decades. Mel is one of the leading business brokers in the world, and in fact, recently has been named to the Business Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Mel. Mel has consulted many high-profile companies, including Levi Strauss, Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Coca-Cola, and many, many others. With that intro, we give a warm welcome to Mel Lisiten. Mel, thank you for joining me here on Mind Your Business.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I don't know where to start, because with someone that has the amount of experience that you have in buying and selling, I mean, we can go on for hours on end. But just tell us about yourself. You're the founder of Lisiten Associates, one of the leading business brokers in the world. Your vast experience allowed you to provide your clients with the expert advice and strategies that they need. Acquisition and International Magazine said that you have disrupted the merger and acquisition industry and are the world's current leader. How did this happen?
Well, it all started when I sold my fashion companies. I actually started out to be a fashion designer.
And by the way, you went to FIT.
Yes.
Yay.
And wound up building several fashion companies, but I hated it. And I just decided, I made money, but it wasn't all about money. I just didn't have a great life. I lived on an airplane, flew to hundreds of companies trying to look for production for the products we were making, and it wasn't any fun. So I sold my companies. The next thing that happened is Levi Strauss, who had tried to buy my company, hired me as a consultant to help put them in the clothing business. Mm-hmm. Then I wound up working with JCPenney, Cardin, Macy's, you name some of the rest. Well, again, I found that I didn't like the business. And it was never about money in my life. And so I was looking for the right thing. And one day, someone came to me and said, "Hey, you sold your business. Why don't you sell mine?" It took me 20 minutes on the phone to make this man an extra $1 million. And I said, "Oh, my God, where have I been all my life?"
And you enjoy doing it.
And I loved it. And for the next many years, I did those kind of deals. I would call people who were ready to sell and find out who was interested in selling and sell their business. I used to advertise on the New York Times and on the Wall Street Journal. And then in about 2004, the internet started to hit the business, and many things happened all at once. We started to talk about the coming of the baby boomer age. Mm-hmm. We started to know about using the internet and the far-reaching effects that it could have. And I looked into it and realized that there was nobody doing this, that the business was what I'll call a good old boy business. You want to sell your company, the most important thing you worry about is confidentiality.
Right.
So you might call your lawyer or your accountant and say, "Do you know anybody who might want to buy my business?" But you're afraid you can't advertise it. You don't know what to do.
Right.
The other choices were people who have maybe sold businesses and helped somebody sell one or two, but there was no organization. I had come from building businesses where I built them by marketing, advertising, and getting the word out. Also being very futuristic in my thinking and thinking about what was coming next. The next thing that happened was I built some websites.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, instead of being able to talk to 7 or 8 people a week, I was able to talk to 7 or 8 people a day. Today, we are on 55 websites in 10 languages all over the world. We help a seller of a business to find just that right buyer that fits his business, that fits what he's looking for financially, the type of program he's looking for. Maybe he's looking for a partner. We'll help him with that. We'll look until we find him the right person. And we're selling a lot of businesses. And we're now well known, as you know, all over the world. And there was, unfortunately, I feel like we're Hertz. And there's no Avis. I wish there was an Avis because we're alone in an industry.
Mel, you're looking for competition? This is unreal.
Yeah, because competition helps. I learned long ago that, you've seen buildings go up where you have many showrooms of different types all in the same building. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have that. And that's the biggest difficulty we run into is people have never heard of us. They don't know about us. We're not a normal, everyday conversation because someone looking to sell a business, all he thinks about is confidentiality. Right. He doesn't want to lose his customers, his suppliers, his employees as he's trying to sell his business. So we've put together a program where we have learned how to do all of this and maintain total confidentiality and find that buyer exactly what he's looking for.
Now,
and
how
we have
could
a very high rate of success.
And how could they get in touch with your firm?
Lisiten.com, Lisiten.com.
That's simple. Now, let's go through, which is obvious to you, but perhaps not to the many listeners in the audience. Someone is thinking about selling their business, and they're very nervous and apprehensive about the confidentiality factor. And they also might think, well, I'll make more if I do it on my own. And that's really wrong, as you know. Can you explain why that approach is really backwards, even though they think they'll gain more?
Well, to give you an example, we just listed a business 2 weeks ago where we already have 50 buyers that have come in signing non-disclosure agreements that all we have to do is weed through them and find the best. So obviously that owner is going to get a big choice. That doesn't always happen. But typically when we list a decent business that's we call it a past, a present, and a future. Mm-hmm. Has a good history, is presently well situated in its industry, and has a potential future because a buyer wants to buy a business that he can grow.
Right.
He needs to be able to grow it in order to justify his investment.
Right.
And so we look for that, and those are the types of companies we want to work with. And we can help them. And it doesn't matter what their volume is, but we only work with privately held businesses. We do not do public corporations. We sell sometimes to public corporations, and we are connected all over the world to just about every private equity group, just about every family investment office, just about every high net worth individual who's interested in buying multiple businesses, and many, many smaller public corporations that are looking to acquire companies. So we have this reach, and we make a very huge investment in this. We make a typical owner of a company is trying to get by without spending any money. We take the opposite approach. We go out there and we spend money to make money, and it works. It's that simple.
Now, I read in an article which you used the analogy of, and you explained the difference between a temporary business slump and the peak of a bell curve, because you talk about the exactly perfect time to sell a business. When is that?
When it's on an upswing. When a business is on an upswing, we can show a potential buyer that he's already got a business that's on an upswing. It helps him to make a quick decision. you got to realize that, let's take the man who built the business 30 years ago. And he got it for nothing. He started his business. He put in his blood and sweat and guts
and tears
and whatever money he might have had, and built this business with all his energy over all these years.
Seat of his pants.
But he got it for nothing.
Right.
No money, in other words.
Right.
Now a buyer comes along, has to buy that for, let's say, $10 million. And let's say that this business that we're talking about was netting $2 million to the owner. Mm-hmm. And it's selling at a multiple, we call it a multiple, of 5 times the $2 million. So the value of the business would be $10 million in this case. Well, in order for the buyer to justify buying that $10 million business, he's got to figure a way to build it to about $14 million.
Right.
Because because if he wants to still earn the $2 million that he was buying in the first place, he's got to grow that business in order to justify his investment and still come out with the $2 million. So there are a great many aspects that go into selling a business, and we have to look at every single possible aspect.
And any company that's looking to sell or to buy, but certainly the ones that are selling, when they reach out to Lisiten Associates, your firm holds their hand. They go through the entire. It's not just a phone call and say, "Okay, we'll get back to you." I mean, it's
first of all, it's about confidentiality. You don't want to give it out to a lot of people as an owner, because you don't want to lose your employees, your customers. You
could melt down the company in no time. Yeah.
So the first thing we do is we have one of our people in control of that one client, who all information goes through one person, who makes sure that we know exactly who is getting the information. We have a non-disclosure agreement that in 35 years in business has never been broken. I'm really proud of that. We have never had a problem with our non-disclosure agreement. And it's a tough one. And it's a tough one. And we want it to be tough because we want to protect our client. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the owner of that company to make sure that we're taking care of that business. Also, for our own sake, we work on a commission, and we want to make sure that that business isn't falling away as we're trying to sell
and lose value at this critical time.
Right, exactly. So these are some of the things that we have to take into account. But we take just about everything into account. I've taught this subject in college, only to walk away realizing I was teaching kids who were not going to be my customers in the short term, to tell you the truth. I've given many lectures, as you know. I've been all over the world doing this. We have clients coming from all over the world, and about 80% of the business we sell are probably sold to people from the United States, but still, the world is getting smaller, and we're out there. And I wish everybody was out there, but they're not.
My guest was none other than Mel Lisiten, the founder and owner of Lisiten Associates. Thank you so much. It's amazing how fast time goes when you're on radio. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining me here on Mind Your Business.
Thank you. It only took me 35 years to become an overnight success.
And how true is that statement? Such great advice from Mel Lisiten. And thank you for joining me on this episode of Mind Your Business. I'd love to get your feedback. Post it in the comments below and subscribe and never miss a great edition of Mind Your Business.